Trigger warning: this story contains graphic details involving minors and may be distressing to sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Nestled in the rural heartlands of South Africa lies the small farming town of Stella in the Northwest Province. Known for its quiet streets, tight-knit community, and tranquil atmosphere, the town was the last place anyone would expect a gruesome crime to take place. But in May 2018, this peaceful town was rocked to its core when two teenage girls were found dead in the girls' hostel of Stella High School. The murders of 17-year-old Sharnelle Hough and 16-year-old Marna Engelbrecht shocked the nation and ignited a media frenzy that would follow the case for months. What began as a typical Saturday morning quickly turned into a nightmare. The bodies of the two best friends were discovered in a chilling scene that left investigators stunned and a community devastated. With very little evidence at first and a host of unanswered questions, suspicion soon turned towards someone close to them, someone who walked the same school corridors and knew the victims personally. In today's episode of Once Upon a Crime, South Africa, we delve into one of the most disturbing school-related crimes in recent history, the Stella Murders. We will explore the lives of the victims, the timeline leading up to their deaths, the arrest and trial of the accused, and the long-lasting impact the murders had on the town and beyond. Who could commit such a heinous act inside a school hostel? And why were two innocent girls targeted so brutally? Stay tuned as we unpack every detail of the Stella Murders. Sharnelle Hough, 17, was a grade 11 student at Stella High School. Described by friends and family as outgoing, bubbly, and full of life, she had a bright future ahead of her. She came from a well-known and respected family in the small farming community. She was confident, well-liked among her peers, and known for her friendly and vibrant demeanor. Sharnelle had a strong presence at school, participated in extracurricular activities, and was particularly popular in her social circles. Sharnelle enjoyed sports, music, and socializing with friends. Her dream was to pursue further studies after matriculating. Marna Engelbrecht, 16, was a grade 10 student and one of Sharnelle's closest friends. Quiet and gentle by nature, Marna was seen as kind-hearted and thoughtful. She was not as outgoing as Sharnelle, but her quiet strength made her loved by those who knew her. She was known for her warm smile and caring nature. Marna had a soft-spoken demeanor and was deeply loyal to her friends. Her friendship with Sharnelle was strong and genuine. The two were practically inseparable. Marna loved reading, spending time with animals, and being with friends. Her family described her as mature beyond her years. Sharnelle and Marna were more like sisters than friends. They trusted one another completely, often spent weekends together, and shared the same room in the girls' hostel. The fact that they were found together in such a horrific and tragic state made the crime even more heartbreaking for their families and the community. It was a normal Friday evening at Stella High School's girls' hostel. Many students were unwinding for the weekend. Some were watching television, others chatting in their rooms. Sharnelle and Marna, like many boarders, stayed in for the weekend. They were seen together that evening, laughing and talking with other hostel girls. Around 9 p.m., 10 p.m., Shark Calvin van der Merwe, Sharnelle's ex-boyfriend and a former student of the school, was reportedly seen in the town of Stella. He no longer attended Stella High, but still had ties to the area. He had recently broken up with Sharnelle, and those close to her said she was trying to move on. However, Calvin was reportedly struggling with the breakup and had shown signs of obsession and jealousy. Shortly after 10 p.m., hostel lights were out. Sharnelle and Marna were believed to have gone to bed shortly after, although may have been chatting or texting between students late into the night. Around 5 a.m. the following morning, a hostel matron or supervisor discovered Sharnelle's body hanging from the stair railings. A short time later, Marna's body was found in a nearby room. The police were called immediately, and the entire hostel was cordoned off. What initially looked like a tragic suicide now clearly had a second victim, and signs of a double homicide began to emerge. Sharnelle's body showed no signs consistent with suicide. Investigators quickly began to believe the hanging was staged to mislead them. Marna's body had bruises and ligature marks consistent with manual strangulation, possibly with a shoelace or similar object. Bloodstains and signs of a struggle were found near where Marna lay. The room was turned upside down, indicating violence occurred before her death. The news of the two deaths spread through Stella like wildfire. Parents rushed to the hostel. Teachers, students, and townsfolk were in disbelief. Many wept openly as they waited outside the school. Rumors started circulating. Some whispered that it was a murder-suicide. Others believed a male student may have been involved. The hostel was shut down, and trauma counselors were brought in. Grief swept through Stella. People gathered at the school in prayer and remembrance. Police quickly ruled out the murder-suicide theory and confirmed it was a double homicide. The case now turned toward building a solid murder charge against Calvin, a young man who had once been part of the same school and someone both girls had known well. Forensics found fingerprints and DNA linking Shark Calvin Vandermeer to the scene. Hostel security footage and witness statements placed him in the area around the time of the murders. Just hours later, the 17-year-old ex-boyfriend of Sharnelle Hough, named Shark Calvin Vandermeer, was arrested. He had reportedly snuck into the hostel in the early hours of the morning, allegedly through a bathroom window. It is believed that an argument occurred between him and Sharnelle. When Marna tried to intervene or witness the events, she too became a target. Calvin was said to have first killed Marna, then strangled Sharnelle, and finally attempted to stage her death as a suicide. Calvin initially denied involvement, but under interrogation his story changed multiple times and his demeanor was described as cold and remorseless. The small farming town of Stella came to a standstill in the days following the murders. Both funerals were held during the same week, in late May 2018, drawing hundreds of mourners including students, teachers, local farmers, community members and media. Sharnelle Hough's funeral was held in her hometown, with classmates forming a guard of honor. Her coffin was draped in white flowers, and her parents delivered emotional tributes, remembering her as a bright, loving daughter with a contagious smile. Marna Engelbrecht's funeral was just as emotional. Her family remembered her gentle spirit, intelligence, and deep loyalty to friends. Teachers described her as humble, responsible, and kind. Many of their classmates wore their school uniforms in solidarity and heartbreak. The funerals were broadcast by national media, showing a community in mourning and disbelief. The murders shattered the sense of safety in Stella, a town where people rarely locked their doors. Local churches held vigils, and counselors were brought in to support grieving students. Parents called for tighter hostel security, as outrage grew over how easily someone could enter the girls' hostel unnoticed. Social media was flooded with tributes, candle emojis, and demands for justice under hashtags like Justice for Sharnelle and Marna. The tragedy forced the community to confront not just the horror of the crime but also broader issues like gender-based violence, toxic relationships, and hostel safety protocols in rural schools. Calvon was charged with 2 counts of murder. His trial began in 2019 at the Northwest High Court. The prosecution painted a picture of jealousy-driven violence. They presented evidence that Calvon had become increasingly possessive, had stalked Sharnelle, and sent her angry messages after their breakup. Witnesses described how he refused to accept that the relationship was over and had even made threatening remarks days before the murders. The defense argued he was emotionally unstable, but did not deny his involvement. In November 2019, Calvon van der Merwe was found guilty of both murders. He was sentenced to double life imprisonment, 1 life sentence for each murder. The judge called the murders cruel, calculated, and an extreme act of possessive rage, condemning the attempt to disguise one murder as suicide. The trial offered closure for the grieving families, but the scars left on the Stella community remain. The case has since become a chilling example of how domestic violence and emotional manipulation among teens can spiral into devastating consequences when ignored. The tragic deaths of Sharnelle Hough and Marna Engelbrecht sent shockwaves through South Africa, not just because of their youth, but because of the haunting betrayal by someone they once trusted. In a town where everyone knew each other, their murders shattered the illusion of safety and exposed the deadly consequences of unchecked obsession, emotional abuse, and possessive control even among teenagers. These were not just statistics. Sharnelle and Marna were daughters, classmates, friends, vibrant young women who should have had their whole lives ahead of them. Instead, their names are now etched into South Africa's dark history of gender-based violence. Their story is a chilling reminder that love twisted by control is not love at all, it's a warning sign. And when warning signs are ignored, the cost can be irreversible. As we remember Sharnelle and Marna, may we continue to raise awareness, encourage open conversations about toxic relationships, especially among the youth, and demand safe environments in our schools and communities. This has been Once Upon a Crime, South Africa. If this story moved you, please share it not for views, but for awareness. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.